Hey, it's Mazzy here. Welcome back. This is the 2024 Jazz Vinyl Tag. A lot of tags going on right now. There was the actual overview annual tag with 20 questions. There's a prog tag. There's a blues tag. There is an Americana tag. there's a tag you're it. There's so many tags. I might do some more over the next week, so we'll see. It's a fun way for us to show kind of our take on the same 10 or 20 questions, depending. So this one was created by the Waxed Rob in conjunction or consultation with the Jazz Bums. Those two channels are listed below. So let's have at it. The first question is, show a jazz album that you received as VCLT. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, I have no idea what it means, but it's the Vinyl Community Love Train. How silly is that? It's where people turn other people on, share records, like a love train. You know, I always think, is it the OJs? Love Train. I think it's the OJs, right? Did they do Love Train? Well, Courtney Pine, British saxophone player, debut album, 1984, produced by Michael Kuskuna, who worked for a time in the 70s and 80s for Blue Note Records, a great producer in his own right. Plays the tenor, plays soprano, plays the bass. Beautiful record. I heard his name, but I didn't know anything about this guy. This was given to me by Felipe, one of the Jazz Bums. And this is put out by Analog October Records, which is a new private small press label they license out of a record store in the UK. And I got this lovely, I mean, look at this. How sweet is that? Little card, little holiday gift from Felipe with a lovely note. But this is a really well-recorded, well-received record. Beautiful package, cover, sound. For some reason, mine kind of smells like patchouli. Is that just me? Do they all smell like patchouli? You know, I'm from that generation where patchouli in the late 60s when I was a little kid was like all over hippiedom. So is that was that the ink? Did you put patchouli in the ink? Anyway, this is a fabulous jazz record. There's some vocals on it, not a lot, but and vibraphones, but it's a wonderful album of a newer generation. I mean, 80s that's 40 years old already. God, in fact, 40 years. This is the anniversary. So that is the answer to that question. Show a jazz album you have both stereo and mono. There are many, and this actually could answer well, both questions, but stereo and mono. My original pressing of her debut, Nina Simone's Jazz is played as an exclusive side street club. It is a studio album. Classically trained Nina Simone. What an amazing piano player, vocalist, very soulful, very bluesy. If you don't have this album, grab it now. This is a mono OG copy, but this is, I don't know if it's available at the moment. This is an Analog Productions reissue of the stereo. Some people prefer the mono because there's more separation. I like the atmosphere of the stereo as well. So, and of course, this is a clean, pristine, wonderful, mastered all analog record by Analog Productions. This one happens to be a gatefold with promo material in there, but one of my favorite blues jazz artists, even crossed over in the pop realm, covering some Bee Gees songs like Please Read Me and, oh God, obviously her version of Wild in the Wind. I never knew that Wild in the Wind that Bowie sang on Station to Station, she did. Hers. Did she write it? I don't recall. But anyway, this is a must-have album in a jazz collection. Nina Simone, blues, jazz, very soulful, wonderful record, and great piano playing. Now these two, actually these are both mono, but the next question is, show a jazz album that you have an OG and a reissue of. It could have been those two Nina Simone records, but you got to show a little diversity. This is an amazing sounding record. I mean, this is the wonderful trio of Nat King Cole. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually 5. It's not a trio. It's a quintet. But this is an original mono, Nat King Cole, After Midnight. This is a fantastic sounding record. This OG copy is somewhat autographed by the person who owned it, not Nat Cole. I think he is one of the best voices in in jazz and popular music. His piano playing is so brilliant. And the stuff he did for Capitol, and of course, if you've ever gone to LA and seen the Capitol Tower, it's referred to as the house that Nat built. Basically, the money from the selling of his records really exploded for Capitol Records, and they built the Hollywood and Vine wonderful Capitol Towers. After Midnight, great record. But again, I give it to Analog Productions. There's their logo. This is a double 45. This sounds stunning. This is where Analog Productions, Chad Kassem, this is, to me, what they do right at a great price point. I mean, not cheap, but not crazy over the top. Excellent gatefold. Oh, this is not a gatefold. And I forgot, it is it 2 records or 3? I'm forgetting that. It is 3 records in a single sleeve, but it's a wide mouth sleeve. And of course, it has a lovely insert telling about the production and their mastering. And this was mastered engineers Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman, and they did a fabulous job. If you follow the Hoffman reviews and read anything by Steve Hoffman, and he's a huge Nat Cole fan, as I am, and he's done some wonderful things with Analog Production, as Kevin Gray has. And if you can find this, this is a way to go. I don't think you need, gatefold or a trifold on something like this, or a box. This is a special record, and it's a really wonderful recorded record. Of course, Nat Cole, After Midnight. Very, again, jazzy, soulful. I'm showing a lot of vocals here so far, as I am in the next question prompt. Show a jazz album by an artist not known for being a jazz performer. To me, this is one of my favorite albums of the last 5 years or so. And I think it was at almost the top of my list of that year. It was 2019. And this is Chrissy Hind with the Valve Bone Woe Ensemble, Valve Bone Woe. Her brother arranged this. This is a jazzy record of standards. Now, the standards are very popular standards, like rock in a way. Carol, I Know, the Beach Boys song. Wild is the Wind that I just mentioned. What a great version of that. No Return. How Glad I Am. Obviously reminiscent of the the Columbia Jazz records of the 1960s. This is such a great album. This is a double album as well. Really well recorded. A large ensemble, but a beautiful mood piece and really interesting. And Chrissy Hind, obviously from the Pretenders, nails these songs. If you don't have this record, and if you don't know this record, just buy it. If you can find the vinyl, I assume it's still in print. It's a lovely, lovely record. And again, it's one of my favorite albums the last decade, last 5 years, actually. So Chrissy Hind, Valve Bone Woe with the Valve Bone Woe Ensemble. Let me just take a look at that right there. Jazz, dub, music, beautiful, beautiful. Late nights or a Sunday morning record. The next prompt is show a record that was initially shelved and issued on vinyl many years after it was recorded. I wouldn't say this is that specifically. I know a lot of people for this prompt are showing some of the tone poets they're pulling out from records that were recorded to be released but never actually put out. This is a little different because these are alternate versions and outtakes. On ABC Records, this came out in 1974, ABC Impulse. And this is John Coltrane's African Brass Sessions Volume 2. The original of this, I believe, was it 1964, I think was the original. Am I right on that? And this is released in 1974. Obviously, Africa Brass was a wonderful record that Coltrane did for Impulse then. And these are alternate versions and outtakes that came out in 74. Both these records are good. And these are that 70s period label of Blue Note. Fantastic record, John Coltrane. There's some alternate versions from Africa. There are also some standards like Green Sleeves that he does. And of course, side 2 is Africa, the entire side, 16 minutes, a different alternate version of it with these beautiful African face masks. John Coltrane, so cool. Next is Show an Album that was issued as a private pressing. This was another record from, this is 2018, so this made my 2018 or 2019 one of my top records of all time, of that year, excuse me. And this is Myra Milford, Snowy Egret. Snowy Egret is the trio. That is her. She is an amazing jazz pianist and instructor at UC Berkeley. Quartet, actually, not trio. I'm getting I want everything to be a trio today, and I'm trying to push everything in a trio. But this is a modern jazz record that sounds so beautiful, really well recorded, all instrumental, beautifully recorded, and really interesting, very modern and very accessible, but not middle of the road on any stretch. It's a modern, adventurous piano-led quartet, beautiful pencil-like artwork. But if you find this was on Firehouse Records. That might be herself, or if it's not private, it's a small press. So I think it works as inclusion in this. Recorded in 2017, released in 2018. Again, Myra Milford's Snowy Egret. Just a gorgeous record. The makeup is Ron Miles on cornet, Liberty Ellman on guitar, Stomu Takashihi on bass guitar, and Taishan Sori on drums, and of course, Myra on the piano. Beautiful record. Show a Jazz Album that was issued, I had already got that one. Show a Jazz Album is an excellent introduction to free jazz or avant-garde. You know, this album last year, 2022, actually, the year before, was one of my favorite sounding records. I even think it might be from a digital source, but I don't care. And this is the Impulse Verve. This is Pata, Alice Coltrane. I love this. This has obviously Alice Coltrane's her beautiful harp. The sounds of her harp on this are just gorgeous. And the arrangements with Pharoah Sanders, Joe Henderson, Ron Carter, and Ben Ridley. Really well recorded, a beautiful presentation on this. Alice Coltrane, of course, this was obviously recorded released originally in 1970. I've never seen an original copy of this. I know her records really didn't sell a lot at the time, but her whole spiritual jazz thing has flourished. And her records, I mean, some are way out there, but they're all really beautiful and really interesting if you can invest yourself in it. But this is an easier one to get into as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's as out there as some of her other recordings. So Pata the El Dowd, Alice Coltrane. Show a Jazz Album is an example of cheap heat. I am on a quest. I am on a journey. I am on a, what's the word I'm doing? Cheap Heat. These are Cheap Heat still, or fairly cheap, and all his records. So I'm going to show two different labels he's on. Actually, yeah, two different labels he's on, and show 3 records, because you can still get his records cheaply. But I'm on a crusade. That's the word I was thinking of. And that is Mos Allison. Mos Allison is the jive-ass piano player, singer, that influenced so many British rock and rollers, primarily Pete Townsend. You know, Young Man's Blues, Young Man on Live at Leeds, and he, I think, in his on-stage banter even mentions Mos Allison. You can get these records cheap. He does sing a lot, not always. His bluesy, jazzy piano style is so forward-thinking and so wonderful and very accessible. And he's got this jive voice like, when a man needs a woman, kind of like that. It's like beatnik jazz shit. It's like the cliche beatnik, but it's so good. Some people later years in the 70s, late 60s, 70s may know a piano player that played with the Steve Miller Band for a while, Ben Sidran. And Ben Sidran really emulates, when you hear him sing, not on the Steve Miller albums, but on his I Lead a Life. He did stuff on Blue Thumb and a few other labels. Those are really cool. He really emulates. I think he had a TV show years ago, a jazz show. Was it MTV or Late at Night? where he showcased jazz. But I think he co-wrote, what is it, Steve Miller's Living in the USA, one of those songs he co-wrote and plays on Steve Miller Band. But let's go back to Mos Allison. This record, Mos Allison sings. If you see this record, you know, for a while you could see it for $4, $5, $6. Maybe it's up to $15 now, depending. But it's not an expensive record. Prestige. This is produced by Don Schlitten and recorded by Rita Van Gelder in 1963. Fantastic record. You got The Seventh Son. Seventh Son. Again, covered by some of these groups like 10 Years After was into him. The Yardbirds were into Mos Allison. Eyesight to the Blind, before it was on Tommy. The Sonny Boy Williamson song is on here. Parchment Farm, you know Parchment Farm. Blue Cheer covered Parchment Farm. Of course, an old blues standard. But Young Man is on here. And I would say if you see this one, start with this one. This one's good. I think this one's more all instrumental, as I recall. But a lot of his records on Atlantic Records are dirt cheap. And what's great about this is Don't Worry About a Thing. I don't even think, as I recall, that the Atlantic 75, I think they ignored this guy. Ignored him. Come on, Atlantic 75. Put something out. On here you have I Don't Worry About a Thing. Your Mind is on Vacation, but your mouth is working overtime. How friggin' wonderful jive is that? Now, that's an original by Mos Allison. A lot of songs, a lot of blues songs, a lot of standards. The song is ended by Irving Berlin is on here. But any time I see an Atlantic record of Mos Allison, I just grab it because they are cheap. Buy Mos Allison records. I don't think you'll be sorry. And it's actually, if you're a blues fan and a rock fan, this would be a good entry into jazz because it has that bluesy rock. You know, if you like someone, it's not nor New Orleans like Dr. John is, but some of his piano playing gets in that. Sometimes he plays these really fast arrangements. Sometimes it's slow and swampy, but great, great stuff. Mos Allison. And lastly, a jazz album which you considered a grail that you picked up. I have about 75 Music Matters Jazz. That's the audiophile label that Joe Harley and Ron Rombach started, and is really patterned for Blue Note, what Joe for Blue Note would turn into Tone Poets. And they go for a bit. The one I wanted, and I know it came out, and this is a wonderful record. You can get a classic records reissue for 20, 25 bucks. But I really wanted, and this is where the superficial side of me, of course the sound is a double 45, but the cover of this wonderful album, I couldn't get this on the classic. I just love this. I actually told Joe Harley I wanted this Tone Poet. He doesn't double up really doing Tone Poet version of Music Matters yet. We'll see. But I mean, all it is this kind of beautiful pink, you know, skew tone over this wonderful photograph of this woman here. Bobby Hutcherson, vibes, and Marinda, Herbie Hancock piano, Bob Cranshaw bass, and Joe Chambers. I've been wanting this for a long time, and Chris in DC had an extra copy and he sold it, and I ended up buying from him. Look at that. Look at that's where the Tone Poet pattern, but this is so beautiful. I've been waiting, and I could have bought it at times for not much more on Discogs, and you can get these, but they're going like, you know, close to $400 now for this record. But again, you can buy a $20 version. It is the music, stupid. I know I always say that, but this, I do love wonderful photography, wonderful art direction, artwork. So there are those exceptions. Again, the music first. But if I can have, like, you know, if you can be pretty and smart, that works for me too. Thanks for watching. Links below to the Jazz Bums and the Waxed. Mazzy loves you.